Have you ever felt controlled by your impulses, as if unseen forces shape your choices before you even realize them? This book invites you to step behind the curtain of your own mind, uncovering the silent patterns that trap you in cycles of reaction and regret. What if you could break this spell and seize the power to steer your life, fully awake, deeply intentional? From impulse to intention, how to train yourself for long-term success is more than a manual. It is your map through the tangled territories of mental struggle toward freedom and fulfillment. Impulse to Intention: How to Train Yourself for Long-Term Success, written and published by Mindset Liberation. Chapter 1: Recognize the Trigger Cycle. There is a force that lies just beneath the surface of every thought and action, a silent mechanism quietly shaping the direction of our days. For so many, the drama of mental health is not the larger crises that make headlines, but the everyday moments, subtle and repetitive, where choices unravel before we're even aware a choice existed. Imagine a split second in the middle of an ordinary afternoon when a feeling of anxiety bubbles up, triggered by a harsh word or a dismissive glance. The response, anger, withdrawal, or perhaps a compulsive behavior, feels automatic, an unchangeable course predetermined by years of habit and unconscious learning. Science tells us this is no accident. Research from the National Science Foundation suggests that a staggering 95% of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors occur automatically. These unconscious routines are the building blocks of what's known as the trigger cycle, a constant loop linking external cues to emotional responses and reflexive habits. For people living with depression, anxiety, or other mental health conditions, the cycle is especially punishing. Imagine waking up each morning with the hope of a fresh start, only to find old troubles meeting you like a shadow at every turn. Even small, everyday tensions, a sound, a smell, a passing memory, can spark an overwhelming urge, unleashing feelings of sadness, fear, or frustration. None of these arise in a vacuum. Psychologists warn that our brains, shaped over millions of years, are hardwired for survival. Threats once meant physical danger, but in daily life, the body reacts just as powerfully to perceived social threats, criticism, or disappointment. Neural pathways shaped by childhood or unresolved pain reinforce these automatic alarm bells. The result: a cycle where outside triggers silently press hidden buttons, propelling you into a familiar storm of thoughts, feelings, and impulsive actions that seem impossible to resist. This relentless pattern does not discriminate. Statistics suggest 1 in 5 adults wrestles with mental health challenges each year, showing how widespread the struggle is. Yet even those who might not meet the criteria for a diagnosis, notice how often stress or disappointment sets off an inner domino effect. Many people spend years drifting between impulsive decisions, unaware of the root system that nourishes their reactions. Some even believe willpower alone is enough to change, only to discover those old patterns persist undetected and undefeated beneath the resolve. Here lies a profound truth. Until you learn to see and name your personal trigger cycle, you will remain hostage to it. The cycle is not simply a failure of character or motivation. It is a learned and reinforced process that operates on a level you rarely notice. Recognition is the first light that cuts through this darkness. When you start to observe the moments before the reaction, you step away from being captive to becoming conscious. Each of us, no matter our past or present hardship, can begin this journey. The first step is always the hardest, but it is also the doorway to profound transformation. Be prepared to look closer, to see what was always there but seldom understood. The hidden machinery of your mind does not have to remain a mystery. Seeing the cycle is its own quiet, essential revolution. Once the trigger cycle takes hold, its grip extends beyond simple habit. Its roots grow deep within our emotions, influencing everything from instinctive reactions to the very narratives we construct about ourselves. For Anna, a high-achieving professional, stress at work became something far more insidious than tight deadlines and tense meetings. One harsh critique from her supervisor triggered an invisible sequence: rising panic, self-doubt flooding her thoughts, and a desperate urge to seek immediate reassurance or escape. While her face remained composed, Anna's inner world spiraled. She later confessed to a persistent exhaustion, her confidence gradually eroded by the endless cycle of anticipation, reaction, and regret. When psychologists at UCLA examined such recurring emotional patterns, they discovered that unmanaged trigger cycles create chronic physiological stress responses, leading to anxiety, sleeplessness, and even symptoms resembling traumatic stress. It isn't merely the initial event that injures, but the relentless repetition, each cycle layer deepening the wounds beneath the surface. The subtlety of the trigger cycle makes it deeply treacherous. Most people do not make disastrous choices in a single, unmistakable moment. Instead, it is the series of minor, unnoticed capitulations, a harsh reply to a friend, a forgotten promise, a skipped opportunity, that add up, sapping self-esteem and feeding the internal critic. Nothing damages self-worth quite like the sinking realization that you have once again abandoned your better judgment for fleeting relief. A recent study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology traced the connection between impulse-driven cycles and declining self-image. Participants caught in these patterns reported heightened shame and persistent feelings of failure, no matter their external successes. The shadow of the trigger cycle stretches into relationships as well. Arguments recycle familiar scripts not because partners are unkind or indifferent, but because each is reacting to old cues and buried emotions, acting them out like a play already rehearsed 1,000 times. The tragedy is not in the arguments themselves, but in the growing isolation that follows, each conflict convincing you that lasting change is out of reach. Few realize just how easily the brain adopts and maintains these loops. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for reward and motivation, becomes a master manipulator, enticing us to repeat certain actions for momentary relief or gratification. Real-world therapist Dr. Samuel Grant recalls clients who, after a setback, return to unhealthy behaviors almost without thought, grazing on junk food or avoiding social interaction. This momentary soothing only intensifies the pain later, chaining people more tightly to their trigger patterns. These repeated disappointments convince the mind of its own helplessness, breeding a cycle of powerlessness that feels impossible to escape. The familiarity of the cycle offers a strange kind of comfort. At least within its confines, you believe you know what to expect. Such false security becomes the primary reason people fall under its spell, returning again and again to unconsciously scripted outcomes. If left unchecked, this cycle becomes a silent saboteur, systematically undermining hopes, possibilities, and the courage needed for change. Recognizing the severity of this pattern demands a serious reckoning with uncomfortable truths. Its impact on one's sense of agency and hope is profound, and the cost of inaction rises with each cycle that repeats itself. Yet amidst this darkness, understanding begins to chip away at old certainties. The urgency is real. Patterns that go undetected are allowed to thrive in secrecy. As you prepare to move forward, remember that some of the most powerful warning signs remain hidden, often camouflaged by everyday routine or buried beneath rationalizations. In the next part, we will uncover the overlooked signals and subtle alarms that reveal when the trigger cycle is at work, long before it becomes a full-blown crisis. The presence of a trigger cycle often manifests in ways that may seem ordinary at first, but upon closer inspection reveal the subtle fingerprints of mental distress. One clear indicator is an unexplained mood swing, intense irritation or sadness erupting from what appear to be trivial events. For Claire, a college student juggling academic demands and complicated family expectations, disappointment about a test result was rarely just about grades. Instead, it set her on a downward spiral, escalating into self-criticism and a compulsion to withdraw from friends and isolate herself further. Over time, these triggers accumulated, forming patterns that she and those around her began to simply accept as normal. She often noticed that her heart would race before she consciously thought she was worried, her pulse quickening in class or at home long before her mind caught up with her body's distress. These physical cues, tight chests, clenched jaws, headaches slipped constantly beneath the surface, quietly sounding the alarm that something deeper needed to be acknowledged. There are also mental manifestations which are just as insidious. When the trigger cycle is active, even the mildest criticism from a coworker, partner, or family member can spiral into relentless overthinking, replaying conversations and anticipating further conflict. Tom, a young father recovering from a bout of depression, recalls the way his patience would erode after minor household annoyances. Each small event, a spill, a forgotten task, a raised voice from his child, set off a familiar sequence. Instead of responding to the situation itself, he would feel a surge of inadequacy, fearing that he was repeating the failures he witnessed in his childhood home. His ability to stay present was hijacked by old, unresolved emotions, which then led him into cycles of guilt and avoidance. As research from the American Psychological Association points out, lingering and disproportionate emotional responses signal not just personality quirks, but underlying mental health struggles that follow an automatic path set in motion by the trigger cycle. Recurring relationship disruptions are another common sign. For many, the first hint comes not from inner discomfort, but from how interactions steadily deteriorate with loved ones. Consider Ravi, who spends sleepless nights rehashing arguments and silently stews over minor slights. His partner, frustrated by his emotional retreat, interprets it as indifference or hostility. In reality, Ravi is locked in a familiar loop. External criticism activates buried fears, which then result in emotional withdrawal, further inflaming the conflict. Both partners are left feeling misunderstood and alone, yet neither is fully aware of the hidden script governing their actions. The compounding effect of these unnoticed cycles is what pushes many relationships to the brink, emphasizing again how crucial early recognition is. Understanding and naming these patterns is far from a simple act of self-reflection. It is the pivot on which genuine healing begins. Without identification, the cycle remains free to shape choices and perceptions without restraint. Once it is acknowledged, the foundations for change begin to shift, opening space for self-compassion and a chance at breaking free from self-destructive spirals. Only through this vigilant self-awareness can one hope to step outside the cycle and reclaim intention over daily actions and emotional responses. As you close this chapter, take a moment to reflect. Which patterns in your own life echo the quiet urgency described here? Awareness may sting, but it is the key to stepping off the treadmill of unconscious reaction. In the next chapter, you will encounter practical, evidence-based strategies to disrupt this cycle at its root and begin making genuinely mindful choices. If these insights have illuminated something in your own life, share your experiences or suggestions for personal growth so Mindset Liberation can keep bringing meaningful content, and join us as we move into a deeper understanding of transformation in the pages ahead. Chapter 2. Disrupt Automatic Reactions. Change often begins at the very point where chaos feels most unyielding. While the trigger cycle hypnotizes you into automatic responses, the truly powerful solution is far simpler and more radical: disruption. Imagine, for a moment, standing at the crossroads of old reflex and new awareness, a split second where you pause, recognize the old urge, and choose another path. This moment is small but revolutionary. Recent studies in neuroplasticity have revealed that the brain is not chained to its old scripts. Instead, with each intentional interruption of automatic patterns, new pathways begin to form, strengthening your capacity for change and rewiring your emotional responses. It is in these fractions of a second, these brief windows of conscious choice, that transformation really takes root. Many are surprised to learn how common automatic reactions truly are. According to the University of Massachusetts, nearly half of our daily actions are habitual, done without meaningful thought or awareness, as if we have simply sleepwalked through life's most crucial decisions. Whether it is the quick retort to a criticism, the nervous tapping of a foot during conflict, or the instinct to retreat when fear arises, automaticity is the invisible force guiding outcomes we later regret. A case in point is Miguel, a schoolteacher who, for years, found himself snapping at students whenever the classroom got loud. He viewed his outbursts as an inescapable flaw until a therapist suggested deliberately pausing for just 10 seconds before responding. This small act revealed a wealth of suppressed emotions and taught Miguel he could choose calm instead of anger, transforming not only the student's experience but his own self-respect as well. Expert insight points to a powerful truth. Disruptive action is a skill, one that can be learned through repeated, mindful practice. Dr. Sarah Haynes, a leading psychologist in cognitive behavioral therapy, notes that the mind is conditioned for efficiency, not happiness. She suggests that the automaticity of reaction is evolution's way of saving mental energy for real threats. In the modern world, where our days are shaped more by emotional and social challenges than by physical danger, those automatic scripts can become maladaptive. The good news is that awareness itself is the first wave of disruption. When you actively notice your physical sensations, emotional states, and thoughts before you act, you drive a wedge between impulse and reaction. Over time, the effect is striking. What once felt inevitable begins to crumble, revealing a host of new options you can consciously choose from. The science of habit change supports this hope. The habit loop, cue, routine, reward, is powerful but not final. Intervening at the routine stage, even with the smallest disruption, sends signals to the brain that old patterns can be rewritten. Every time you delay a rash response or insert a moment of curiosity instead of certainty, you claim back autonomy and control. Consider also everyday heroes who quietly reinvent themselves in moments of temptation, anger, or shame by simply stopping, breathing, or asking themselves a question. These are not grand gestures, but quiet disruptions, proof that progress is seated in the smallest acts of intentionality. By learning to interrupt the flow of automatic habits, you unlock new layers of freedom. You begin to understand that your feelings and actions are not inescapable fates, but flexible, trainable choices. In this hopeful reclaiming of control, you set the stage for profound personal change and ongoing growth, forging the foundation upon which all future transformation is built. Disrupting automatic reactions is not merely a hopeful idea, but an approach rooted in how the brain wires itself around experience and intention. The effectiveness of this method can be traced directly to its impact on neural circuitry. When you routinely interrupt a conditioned response before it fully takes shape, you force the brain to engage its higher reasoning centers, rather than relying on primitive, reflexive impulses. Neuroscientists describe this as shifting activity from the amygdala, where fear and urgency dominate, to the prefrontal cortex, which governs thoughtful decision-making and self-control. Each successful interruption is like a workout for your brain's self-management muscles, laying down new connections that favor thoughtful choice over raw impulse. Compelling research supports the urgency of embracing this practice. At Stanford University, Dr. Kelly McGonigal's experiments with those trying to break harmful habitual patterns found that even brief acts of mindful disruption, such as pausing to notice and name an emotion as it rises, reduced relapse rates in addictive behaviors by over 20%. What stands out is not just the short-term management of symptoms, but the cascading effects long-term. Participants who actively interrupted their old cycles began to report better emotional regulation, fewer outbursts, and greater satisfaction in relationships, simply because they felt they were finally steering their own behavioral ships. In fact, the more frequently they practiced disrupting an impulse, even if it did not always lead to the perfect outcome, the faster their sense of autonomy and hope grew. This turning point, when reaction is interrupted and alternative action seems possible, marks not only control over the present moment, but also transforms one's beliefs about what is personally achievable. Real-life accounts provide vivid evidence of how powerful disruption can be. Consider Megan, who spent years locked in patterns of anxious social withdrawal. Childhood criticisms and subtle rejections had conditioned her to flee every time she sensed an awkward pause in conversation or suspected disapproval. For her, automatic reaction took the form of shutting down or making excuses to leave. Desperate for a new path, Megan committed to a routine. Anytime she felt the familiar urge to withdraw, she would pause, count backwards from 5, and take one slow breath while remaining engaged in the moment. Initially, the discomfort was palpable. Everything inside her screamed to escape. But the pause worked as a wedge. The few seconds gave her room to reconsider, and instead of vanishing, she began to ask herself whether her fear was rooted in the present moment or in the past. It did not take long for Megan to notice a shift. The pauses became smoother, the urge to flee softened, and in time she discovered she could remain where she had once always run. Her life, Richer friendships, genuine conversations, new opportunities expanded from those tenacious moments when old patterns were interrupted. What unites the research in Megan's story is a message of both urgency and possibility. Every day without intervention is another day. The brain deepens its automatic ruts, making future transformation harder. Yet with every disruption, even a minor one, the mind moves closer to flexibility and healing. This method's power lies in its accessibility. Anyone willing to engage can begin right now, in this moment, simply by observing and then interrupting just one reaction. The stakes could not be higher. Your future, reclaimed from the past, is built action by action in the space between impulse and intention. Disrupting automatic reactions does not require supernatural discipline or years of training. Rather, it begins with a deliberate pause that signals the end of old routines and the beginning of conscious control. Imagine treating every automatic urge or emotional surge as an invitation to slow down and check in with yourself. When a trigger arises, a sharp word, a flash of anger, a pressing temptation, step one is to quite literally stop where you are. Pause and take a full, steady breath. It might seem trivial at first, but that breath is your first act of resistance, a tiny wedge that creates space for intention to intervene. In that pause, make it a habit to ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? Naming the emotion pulls activity from the reactive, unconscious parts of your brain into your conscious awareness. Neuroscientists see this as the key mechanism that weakens the grip of automatic patterns, giving you real authority in the moment. Once you have acknowledged your true feeling, the second step is to label the urge behind your original reaction. Not just what you feel, but what you want to do about it. For instance, you might realize you want to yell, escape, procrastinate, or numb the discomfort in some way. Recognizing not just the feeling, but the urge allows you to clearly spot the familiar cycle at work. Now, instead of blindly following it, mentally thank your mind for protecting you this way in the past, and then gently experiment with an alternative action. You are not demanded to execute superhuman feats here. Start small. If your typical urge is to shut down in an argument, try simply stating, "I need a moment," instead of storming off. If anxiety usually drives you back to bed, test spending just 2 minutes sitting quietly, noticing your surroundings rather than running from the discomfort. These are victories, no matter the size, and each one proves you can choose differently. In the spirit of small wins, set achievable goals for disruption. Aim to disrupt just one reaction a day. Place a reminder on your phone or notebook, prompting, pause, breathe, name. Every successful pause strengthens pathways toward your chosen self, no matter how fleeting or shaky they feel at first. Journaling can amplify your gains. At the end of each evening, write down which reactions you disrupted, even if the experiment did not go as planned. Research shows that consistent tracking builds not only skill, but confidence, and that confidence is contagious throughout your life. As you nurture these micro changes, celebrate every shift, every moment you prove that old patterns are not destiny. The transformation does not come in white-knuckling through disaster, but in layering simple, conscious choices day after day until a new way of living feels natural. Remember, you are not required to uproot everything at once. Momentum is built through repetitions, self-forgiveness, and the thrill of claiming each success as your own. With these first moves, you have taken real, tangible power back from habit. As you start looking closely at your daily reactions and nudging them, chapter by chapter, you grow more resilient, more open, and more confidently in control. This momentum you are building paves the path for a deeper dive into personal change. In the next chapter, we will explore how to clarify your most authentic long-term desires, the vision that will pull you forward into a life shaped not by impulse, but by deep purpose. If any spark from this chapter resonates, if you find yourself experimenting with these techniques or want to offer suggestions, share your thoughts and feedback with Mindset Liberation. Your journey inspires this community and brings encouragement to others taking their first steps. Chapter 3. Clarify Long-Term Desires. There is a quiet power that comes from knowing where you are headed, a force that can pull you out of any storm and redirect your energy towards something meaningful. The solution found in this chapter is not just about resisting what you do not want, but about actively shaping a life that draws you forward, carved and driven by clear, motivating long-term desires. Far too often, people stuck in cycles of reaction are not missing willpower or intelligence. What they most lack is a compelling sense of direction. Like a ship without a destination, they drift from crisis to crisis, energy scattered by every passing wind. Recent studies by the American Psychological Association have found that individuals with clearly defined long-term goals experience higher levels of life satisfaction and psychological resilience, and they are much less likely to revert to unhealthy habits during moments of stress or temptation. This sense of clarity does not come merely from wishful thinking or generic resolutions, but from an earnest and ongoing engagement with what you truly value. Too often, aspirations are inherited, absorbed from family, peers, or media without careful inspection. As a result, day-to-day efforts feel hollow, and motivation drains away when setbacks come. John, for example, spent years climbing the career ladder because it seemed expected, never once pausing to ask himself what genuinely brought him fulfillment. When the promotion he had long chased finally arrived, there was no spark, only a deepening sense of dissatisfaction. It was not until John engaged in thoughtful self-inquiry, reflecting on the moments he felt most alive and purposeful, that his real desires came into focus. Creative growth, meaningful relationships, and making an impact beyond corporate targets. This transformative realization began a powerful shift, drawing him out of destructive routines and toward choices that made him truly thrive. Expert insight amplifies the importance of this internal journey. Dr. Emily Harmon, a specialist in motivational psychology, insists that clarity of desire is the cornerstone of resilience. Her research underscores that individuals who regularly revisit and refine their long-term aspirations demonstrate stronger emotional regulation, even in the face of substantial adversity. The process is dynamic, goals evolve, and so too must your engagement with them. This is not about forcing certainty where ambiguity exists, but about fostering curiosity and honesty regarding the path that calls to you. As Dr. Harmon observes, a well-examined future pulls people through pain. It transforms obstacles from walls into steps. The clarity of a personal vision, then, is less a fixed destination and more a compass, orienting you, inspiring you, transforming setbacks into lessons that refine your sense of meaning. It is heartening to remember that you possess this capacity for self-direction, no matter where your starting point may be. Unlike willpower, which is quickly exhausted, a clear long-term purpose renews itself and gathers strength each time you reconnect with it. The force of your deepest, most genuine desire has the ability to cut through noise, conquer self-doubt, and replace reaction with action aligned to who you wish to become. Returning to your vision again and again, you become more grounded, resilient, and empowered to author your own story. Let this be the beginning of lifting your gaze from reactive cycles to the horizon that truly inspires you. Clarifying your long-term desires infuses each choice with purpose, illuminating your path forward, no matter how rough the terrain becomes. Unlike short-term motivation that flickers and fades at the first sign of hardship, clarifying long-term desires equips you with a compass that remains steady even when your surroundings shift or obstacles arise. The deep reason that this approach is so effective lies in how it reorganizes the architecture of both the mind and everyday action. When you craft and regularly revisit a powerful vision for your future, you give your brain more than a distant hope. You install a guiding framework that anchors decisions, filters distractions, and transforms reactive impulses into deliberate progress. A landmark study from Stanford University revealed that people who articulated meaningful long-term goals were substantially less likely to succumb to impulse behaviors, and they showed enhanced abilities to manage stress, resist cravings, and quickly recover from disappointments. These individuals did not escape temptation entirely. Instead, they possessed a clear sense of why, strong enough to override the fleeting seductions of avoidance, distraction, or self-doubt. This internal shift has rippling consequences. Neurologists studying motivation have found that clear goals activate the brain's reward systems in much the same way as immediate pleasures, but with a crucial difference. While a passing comfort gives you a brief spark of satisfaction, a vivid long-range purpose keeps rewarding you over time, fueling your determination each step closer you draw. In other words, vision invests daily effort with meaning. The task becomes more important than the discomfort it costs. This process rewires your interpretation of setbacks. Failure is no longer proof that you are incapable, but is now an expected hurdle on a larger journey. In fact, research in the journal Motivation and Emotion established that when people frame difficulties as part of a purposeful path, not as evidence of futility, they are far more likely to persist and eventually succeed. Just as science affirms the value of long-term clarity, countless real experiences bring this principle to life. Consider Priya's story. Raised in a household that prioritized conformity and stability, she often found herself absorbing others' aspirations as her own. For years, her efforts in both work and personal relationships felt listless, as if she were merely performing instead of living. Issues with anxiety frequently surfaced, especially when her daily routine lost its structure or she faced unexpected criticism. Driven by a profound dissatisfaction, Priya sat down one quiet weekend and outlined the qualities she most wanted in her future: creative risk, community belonging, and opportunities to learn continually. She made her why visible on her bedroom wall, returning to it on those turbulent days when unease or self-doubt threatened to overwhelm her focus. Gradually, her habits began to sync with her vision. She stopped reflexively comparing her achievements to others and instead sought challenges most aligned with her deeper priorities. Though setbacks still came, Priya reported a reduction in her anxiety's grip and a powerful sense of direction, even delight, during hard moments. Her life expanded into new adventures because setbacks could not erase the vision rooting her forward. It is this grounding in what matters most that keeps you from dissolving into a storm of shifting impulses or external pressures. Knowing your long-term desire arms you with the inner stamina to endure discomfort, persevere through slow progress, and resist retreat into the temporary comforts that once held you back. In a world that rewards quick fixes and instant gratification, this clarity is both your anchor and your shield, a lifeline drawing you toward a life of meaning and away from the pull of reaction and regret. Clarifying your long-term desires is not an abstract exercise reserved for moments of crisis. It can begin with a few moments of honesty and intentional questioning right now, wherever you find yourself. The very first step is to carve out a quiet space for self-exploration, freeing yourself from the distractions of everyday life. Take 3 deep breaths and invite your sense of curiosity to awaken. Start by asking yourself, if nothing held you back, not resources, not self-doubt, not external expectations, how would you most want your life to look and feel 5 years from now? Let your mind wander past the routines that currently define you and into a space where your core values lead the way. Write down anything that arises without judgment. The process is less about perfect clarity and more about possibility. It is about recognizing the themes that make you feel most alive, most yourself. As these desires start to come into focus, the next step is to distill your reflections into specific, motivating statements of intent. Challenge yourself to convert dreams into language that feels personally vibrant. For example, shift from vague hopes such as, "I wish I could be healthier," towards something vivid and actionable like, "I am steadily building a body that supports my energy and freedom." The act of writing down your desire makes it real and opens a path to commitment. Place this new intention somewhere visible, on your desk, your phone background, or even as a note in your wallet, so it becomes a daily reference point, gently anchoring each decision back to your core goal. To keep your momentum strong, adopt a simple daily ritual of checking in with your desire before you embark on major activities. Ask yourself, does this choice connect me to the future I want, or does it pull me back into old habits? This mindful question quickly transforms routine decisions, what you eat, how you spend time, the people you connect with, from default responses into purposeful actions. Do not wait for a huge burst of motivation or clarity. Seek and celebrate tiny wins. Commit to just one small step each day that lines up with your vision, whether that means a meaningful conversation, learning something new, or simply reflecting for 5 minutes before your next impulse. Every single step you take is valid proof that change is not distant. It is happening now, in these manageable increments. As the days pass, take time to track your progress and feelings in a journal, not only attaching progress to outcomes, but also to the intention and awareness you bring. You will quickly notice that even the smallest efforts, consistently repeated, generate trust in your ability to turn conviction into reality. Momentum is built on these repetitions, helped along by self-kindness and a willingness to adjust your desires as you grow and your circumstances shift. Real change feels less daunting when you can witness it unfolding in your own choices. Remember, clarity is not a one-time event. It's a light you relight as you journey. Each fresh articulation of your purpose brings new energy and focus, helping you navigate even the toughest days with resilience and hope. Next, prepare to harness the power of inner decision, learning how to stand firm in your priorities when faced with emotional storms and tempting distractions. If this exploration has inspired revelations or shifts in your perspective, share your insights with Mindset Liberation, leave a comment or suggestion, and help strengthen this growing community as we step into greater self-mastery together. Chapter 4. Strengthen Inner Decision Power. There is an undeniable force within you, a quiet authority often underestimated, called your inner decision power. In the heat of emotion or under the weight of uncertainty, it is this skill, not circumstance, talent, or luck, that creates the crucial pivot between stagnation and progress. At first glance, it may seem that some people are simply born decisive, always sure of themselves amid life's storms. In truth, decisive power is not a fixed trait, but a muscle that each of us can grow with practice, patience, and intention. The origins of this kind of strength lie not outside ourselves, but in small, internally chosen commitments that accumulate quietly until one day their impact is undeniable. Research at Columbia University highlights that individuals who practice conscious decision-making develop measurable gains in resilience, report higher self-esteem, and recover faster emotionally from setbacks than those who rely on automatic habits or perpetual indecision. The terrain of daily life is dotted with crossroads, both large and small. Should you accept the offer, set a boundary, move on, speak up, or quietly persevere? It is easy to be swept along by worry, doubt, or the pressure of what others expect. But here's the liberating truth. Every moment presents a fresh opportunity to practice making choices, no matter how trivial they might seem. Over time, these small, self-chosen acts override the old narratives that painted you as powerless, reactive, or a victim of circumstance. Taking ownership in this way is both radical and healing, pulling you out from the undertow of impulsivity and learned helplessness and into the ground of agency. Studies show that decision power is especially vital for those facing mental health struggles. According to a longitudinal study from the American Journal of Psychiatry, participants who intentionally made and followed through on daily micro-decisions, such as making one difficult phone call, declining an unnecessary obligation, or choosing what to focus on in a stressful moment, demonstrated a significantly higher recovery rate from cycles of anxiety and depression. This practice restored a degree of predictability and control, which built the confidence required to tackle new and bigger life obstacles. Anecdotes echo the research. Amira, once paralyzed by overthinking and the fear of making mistakes, began her journey by vowing to make just one mindful decision a day. Even something as mundane as choosing what to eat for lunch, when turned into a conscious act of agency, signaled to her mind that she was trustworthy and capable. These repeated acts, she discovered, restored not just her self-confidence, but her willingness to risk, try, and fully engage in her own life. This is where courage feeds hope. As you consciously practice strengthening your inner decision power, you will begin to see evidence of transformation in unexpected places. Hesitation loosens its grip, the fog of uncertainty clears, and even failures become feedback instead of setbacks. Each decision you make, when driven from your authentic values rather than fleeting emotions or outside pressures, becomes a stepping stone toward greater stability and fulfillment. The path may not always be linear, and mistakes are simply data, not defeat. Every act of explicitly chosen commitment is a reminder. you are not at the mercy of circumstance. Within you, right now, is the authority to chart your own future, one mindful decision at a time. The method of strengthening inner decision power is effective because it targets the core of so many struggles, the paralyzing sense that life is happening to you, instead of you having a meaningful influence over your experience. This approach works by systematically disrupting old patterns of passivity and reactivity, which are at the heart of chronic stress, anxiety, and self-doubt. When a person feels incapable of deciding, even in minor situations, a deep frustration and helplessness take root, compounding negative emotion and eroding any sense of control. However, research from the University of Chicago demonstrates that when individuals reclaim decision-making intentionally, even starting small, they experience a measurable reduction in both stress hormones and symptoms of mental exhaustion. The process essentially rewires the brain by creating a feedback loop. Each time a choice is made and followed through, the mind receives proof of competence, agency, and self-respect. This reshaping is not just psychological, but physiological, changing the pathways that determine how we face future uncertainty. A compelling case study that highlights the urgency and promise of this strategy comes from the experience of Malik, who endured years dominated by indecision and fear of going down the wrong path. Haunted by what-ifs, he avoided essential choices in work, friendships, and even his health, believing that avoiding commitment protected him from failure. His indecisiveness grew into relentless inner turmoil, fueling cycles of depressive withdrawal and missed opportunities. With the encouragement of a mentor, Malik committed to a 30-day challenge of intentional decision practice. Every day, he wrote out a single area in his life where he typically deferred: what to cook for dinner, whether to initiate a difficult conversation, or even making leisure plans. The rule was simple: choose, act, and reflect, regardless of how the outcome turned out. The initial discomfort was profound, as decades of habitual hesitation resisted every new action. Yet within 2 weeks, Malik reported not just growing confidence in navigating uncertainty, but also a reduction in anxious rumination over potential mistakes. What catalyzed Malik's turnaround was not the magnitude of his daily choices, but the repetitive act of following through despite internal doubt. The structure broke the spell of decision paralysis by proving through action that mistakes and discomfort were not to be feared, but used as raw material for learning. By week 4, Malik observed that the wrong decisions often produced valuable insights and even positive surprises. The practice freed him from the shadow of perfectionism, which had fed his indecision for so long. This change in habit allowed him to finally take greater career risks, initiate new friendships, and advocate for his needs with family, all building a lasting sense of empowerment. This method's effectiveness has been captured beyond isolated stories. A clinical review in the Journal of Behavior Therapy found that deliberate decision-making exercises significantly strengthened recovery outcomes among patients with anxiety disorders and mild depression. The key advantage is how it interrupts the pain cycle, eroding the automatic belief that discomfort or error is a threat rather than a normal and often essential part of growth. Gaining this self-trust through action builds a platform of resilience and clarity from which new possibilities emerge. When your inner decision power is trained and practiced, it lights the way out of passivity and into a future authored by your own hand, making every challenge a ground for mastery rather than defeat. Choosing to strengthen your inner decision power is bravely stepping away from hesitation and self-doubt and creating a new foundation built on action, trust, and growth. To begin, start with the smallest decisions in your day, the sort so often handed to others or left to habit. As you wake, gently ask yourself, what would I like for breakfast? Decide, however simple the choice. Notice any urge to defer, second guess, or wait, and lean into the smallest assertion of preference, knowing there is no wrong pick. This is not about perfection, but practice. With each completed choice, your sense of personal authority takes root. Next, amplify this practice by intentionally tracking your decisions. Keep a journal or notes on your phone, jotting down 3 decisions you made each day and, perhaps more importantly, how you felt afterward. Acknowledge the discomfort or relief, the pride or uncertainty as they arise, allowing both emotions to be seen for what they are, evidence of growth rather than signals of danger. Over time, this record becomes a testament to your daily agency, visible proof that you are guiding your own experience rather than letting it drift. As days pass, increase the challenge by focusing on areas where you often feel stuck. Maybe it is speaking up in meetings, defining a boundary in a relationship, or even choosing a new hobby over a familiar routine. Before making a decision, ground yourself by taking one mindful breath and reassure yourself. No decision is final. This is a step, not a sentence. This reframing allows you to experiment courageously without the burden of needing certainty. If doubt attempts to paralyze you, try the 10-10-10 approach. Briefly ask yourself, how will I feel about this choice in 10 minutes, 10 months, or 10 years? This quick check-in often dissolves the pressure of the moment and helps you balance instinct with long-term perspective. To build real momentum, celebrate every act of follow-through as a genuine win. If at lunch you choose a meal instead of delaying, if, in a conversation, you express your view instead of holding back, if you set a small personal boundary, give yourself credit. These are flexes of your inner decision muscle, and the muscle grows through repetition and kindness. Should you find a choice leads somewhere unexpected or uncomfortable, instead of retreating, jot down one lesson gained. Every outcome, pleasant or not, is teaching your mind that uncertainty is part of a vibrant, expanding life. Remember, no decision, big or small, defines your worth or ability. What matters is the repeated act of choosing, each one gently dissolving the old panic and cementing new patterns of trust and agency. As momentum builds, you'll feel not just more decisive, but steadily more in control, even when bigger challenges approach. You witness firsthand that self-trust is earned by action, not by waiting for confidence to arrive. Each day you practice, you create a self-fulfilling prophecy that you are capable, resilient, and ready for more layered choices, and that will serve you well at every crossroads ahead. As you complete this chapter and reflect on your growing ability to make conscious decisions, prepare to take the next essential step, designing purposeful daily habits that reinforce and multiply the progress you are experiencing now. If this process has unlocked new insights or small victories, please share your reflections or aspirations with Mindset Liberation. Subscribe for more guidance, leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments, and become part of a supportive community where change and encouragement are celebrated together. Chapter 5. Design Purposeful Daily Habits. Change does not occur as a single sweeping breakthrough, but rather unfolds through the repeated rhythms of daily life. Habits are the hidden architects of your fate. There is incredible power in deliberately crafting those routines with intention. For when your days align with your deepest values, progress becomes inevitable. The comfort in this solution is its unwavering reliability. Purposeful habits act as gentle rails that keep you moving forward, even when motivation wavers or doubts erupt. Surprisingly, research shows that nearly 40% of what we do every day is not the result of deliberate decision-making, but of habits run automatically. This means each day offers hundreds of invisible opportunities to gently redirect yourself away from old ruts and toward the future you want most. The malleability of habit is one of the mind's most hopeful qualities. Psychology professor Dr. Wendy Wood, who has spent decades studying habit formation, reveals that habits outlast even strong willpower in shaping daily life. In her studies, individuals who develop purposeful morning routines, be it 5 minutes of quiet reflection, a specific nutritional choice, or a focused planning ritual, reported more stability in their moods, lower anxiety, and a more immediate sense of purpose, regardless of outside stresses. These effects ripple outward. Stacking even one chosen habit upon another gradually strengthens a sense of control and identity, transforming fleeting action into a foundation for lasting change. Real-life examples prove the accessibility of this method. Consider Louise, a busy nurse who, despite understanding stress management on an intellectual level, continued to feel overwhelmed by unpredictability and exhaustion. Standard advice like "just relax" never got traction. But the act of scripting his mornings with 3 small, consistent steps, a glass of water, 5 deep breaths, and the jotting of a daily intention, set him on a sturdier course each day. Over time, these habits became as automatic as brushing his teeth, and more importantly, served as anchors catching his mind and body before stress could dictate his actions. Luis's experience is echoed in studies showing that when habits support core values, the effects cascade, reshaping other domains of life without constant strain or effort. Expert insight confirms just how universal and powerful this approach is. The National Institutes of Health highlight that people who intentionally build positive daily habits not only improve mental health, but also see reduced risk for relapse after setbacks, reinforcing that consistency far outweighs rare bursts of motivation. The path towards sustainable change becomes less about relentless discipline and more about repeated action so familiar and frictionless that it sustains you even on the hardest days. Designing purposeful daily habits is not about perfection. It is about crafting systems that fail-proof your day, rescue your attention from autopilot, and make falling forward into progress the default. When you commit to shaping your smallest rituals with care, you send a constant message to yourself. You are both the creator and protector of your own life story. These habits, humble as they may seem, hold the authority to rewrite the very course of your days. The effectiveness of designing purposeful daily habits lies in their ability to bypass the fickle nature of willpower and emotions, instead creating stable pathways that nudge you automatically toward the life you wish to build. Unlike dramatic, one-time acts of inspiration, well-crafted habits function beneath the surface, quietly shaping your choices without needing constant mental debate. This consistency provides a powerful antidote to the chaos of impulsivity and the drain of decision fatigue that plagues so many struggling with mental health challenges. Scientific studies confirm this advantage. Researchers at Duke University found that as much as 45% of our daily actions are governed by habits, not conscious choices, highlighting just how much of life is directed by default behavior. When these defaults are intentionally structured, they become a shield, steadily protecting your progress, even on days when motivation feels impossibly far away. Purposeful habits are especially effective at bridging the gap between intention and consistent follow-through. For many people who experience anxiety, low mood, or lack of motivation, the prospect of taking action feels overwhelming, precisely because each step seems to require a fresh well of resolve. By pre-planning and repeating key actions until they are automatic, you remove the burden of choice and emotional resistance. Professor Benjamin Gardner, an expert in health psychology at King's College London, has pointed out that habit is a process by which a stimulus generates automatic responses, and that when environments and routines are set up strategically, positive behaviors become almost impossible to miss. This means transformation no longer depends on racing willpower or fighting yourself into compliance every day, but on turning supportive actions into the invisible script guiding your life. A potent illustration of this truth comes from the story of Shira, who for years cycled between bursts of inspired change and periods of hopeless inertia. Diagnosed with depression, she often set ambitious goals but found herself unable to move forward when low energy or doubt returned. Her therapist recommended focusing energy away from major overhauls and instead identifying 3 specific habits she could carry out with little resistance: a morning stretch, a daily gratitude note, and preparing her work bag in the evening. These rituals, she was told, were not to be skipped due to mood or motivation. If completed, even in their smallest version, she was succeeding for the day. For the first 2 weeks it felt pointless and mechanical, but gradually these anchors stabilized her mornings and evenings. Over time, Shira began to trust in her own consistency, and momentum returned as she watched herself succeed in small things regularly. With no single dramatic change, her confidence grew, and other healthy behaviors began to cluster naturally around her routine. Studies echo Shira's experience. Purposeful habits create a self-sustaining system for growth, strengthen resilience in the face of setbacks, and offer a stabilizing force when life's storms are at their worst. They diminish the tyranny of decision, eliminating excuses that stem from fatigue or wavering intention, and instead help you live as the person you wish to become, one gentle practice at a time. Daily, intentional rituals become the platform that holds your progress in place and acts as the scaffolding for healing and transformation when everything else feels uncertain. Establishing purposeful daily habits need not be overwhelming or complicated. It starts with clear intention, honest assessment, and the courage to begin small. First, pick just one area of your life where you notice chaos or inconsistency: a hectic morning, fragmented focus, or late-night worry sessions. Now, envision the simplest, most positive ritual that could anchor this vulnerable space. This might be 3 minutes of silent breathing right after waking, jotting down a goal for the day at your desk, or committing to a gentle evening walk after dinner. The secret is to design your habit so small and inviting that excuses become hard to justify, something so manageable that even on your worst days it feels possible. The next step is to make this habit as visible and automatic as possible. Use subtle visual cues. Place a notebook on your pillow, set a glass of water on your kitchen counter, or stick a bright reminder note on your bathroom mirror. These nudge your memory and nudge your mind, helping turn intention into behavior without conscious effort. Link your habit to an existing routine, such as after brushing your teeth or just before making coffee, to help your mind build the new practice into your neural wiring. Neuroscience shows that habits piggybacking onto firmly established routines are more likely to stick. Once you start, give yourself credit after every completion. This is your small win, your proof that change is not just possible but already underway. Rather than aiming for perfection, treat each day as an experiment. If you miss a day or forget, avoid judgment. Simply restart as soon as you remember, gently recommitting without shame. Tracking your progress for a week can build momentum. A calendar with check marks, a journal note, or a quick digital log. These subtle but powerful acknowledgments reinforce consistency and remind you of your growing commitment. It's helpful, too, to periodically reflect on what your new habit actually gives back to you. How do you feel after following through, even in a modest fashion? Pay close attention to the ease or calm that might quietly replace older nervous rituals. If your small wins spark the urge to add another step, feel free to layer a second habit, but only after the first feels natural and automatic. Slow growth ensures each layer is solid, not fleeting. As this process continues, your days become gently structured by actions that align with your values. Over weeks, the cumulative effect of your habits creates a safety net, one that holds you when stress or strong emotions strike. You are teaching yourself proof every single day that small changes are both achievable and durable, carving grooves of hope and reliability in your mind. You are the craftsman of your days, and with consistent, gentle effort, can make even your toughest moments more navigable and your best self more accessible. Purposeful habits function as invisible allies, steering your behavior toward growth and away from chaos, giving you a calm foundation to build on day after day. Up next, you'll discover how to weather even the most intense emotional storms without backsliding, developing new skills for resilience when triggers or urges strike hardest. If these exercises or strategies have sparked progress or inspiration in you, warm encouragement awaits. Be sure to share your stories, offer feedback, and connect with the Mindset Liberation community for continued strength and insight as your transformation unfolds. Chapter 6. Endure the Urge Storms. There are moments when old urges intensify, rising like dark waves, powerful, often sudden, and demanding your surrender. Yet within each storm, there also lies a remarkable opportunity: the chance to withstand the impulse, ride out discomfort, and emerge even stronger on the other side. Enduring an urge does not mean repressing your struggles or pretending they do not exist. Rather, it is the skillful art of allowing the inner storm to pass, trusting in your own resilience, and gaining confidence through every moment endured without collapse. This process is at the heart of lasting personal transformation, and its power lies in repetition. The ability to weather urges is not reserved for the few, but can be learned by anyone who practices with patience and intention. The science behind this approach is both fascinating and empowering. Resisting urges is challenging not because you are weak, but because your brain is hardwired to seek relief from discomfort. When an urge surfaces, be it to escape, to lash out, to indulge, or to revert to unsafe patterns, neurological pathways flare in search of relief. A landmark study from the University of Pennsylvania showed that while initial resistance to urges activates stress regions of the brain, every completed episode of urge endurance, no matter how small, actually reduces the power of that urge over time. Researchers found that participants who practiced urge surfing, the intentional skill of observing and allowing urges without acting, experienced a marked decrease in the force and frequency of their impulses after just a few weeks. Each successfully surfed wave quieted neural pathways and rewired their stress response towards steadiness and self-trust. Real-life examples demonstrate how universal and conquerable these storms can be. Jasmine struggled for years with powerful impulses toward avoidance whenever anxiety built to unbearable levels. Her response was flight, leaving conversations, skipping events, and even calling in sick when the urge hit suddenly. At first, enduring her urges felt impossible, but with guidance, she learned to pause when anxiety rose and simply notice the sensations without escape. With each occasion, the urge lost a bit of its intimidating power, and Jasmine discovered that she could feel discomfort and still remain in control. Little by little, her confidence rebuilt, until situations that once left her reeling became moments of triumph. Experts affirm that enduring urges is a cornerstone skill in treating not only addiction or compulsive behaviors, but also everyday emotional struggles. Acceptance and commitment therapy, for example, centers on helping individuals withstand inner distress by opening to discomfort, labeling urges as temporary, and focusing on chosen values through the turmoil. This creates a positive feedback loop. Each time you weather the storm, your self-belief grows, making you more willing and able to face the next. This is a skill set, not a verdict, and it places the possibility of change in your own steady hands. You have, within you, the strength to endure and transform even the toughest storms of impulse. Every moment you stand firm, you claim more space for your true self and pave the way for a resilient, empowered future. The power of enduring urge storms lies in its foundation on both neuroscience and lived human experience. Unlike simply distracting yourself or avoiding the issue, enduring an urge teaches the brain an invaluable lesson. Discomfort can be survived and does not have to dictate your actions. When you withstand an urge, you break the cycle that reinforces impulsivity. Instead of being a slave to fleeting discomfort, you carve out a new neural response, one marked by tolerance and control rather than frantic escape. Scientific studies on urge surfing and exposure therapy consistently reveal lasting benefits when people allow urges to crest and fall naturally. The brain is forced to rewire itself, and what originally felt unbearable gradually diminishes in urgency as old reward circuits weaken and new connections favor long-term choice over short-term relief. Dr. Judson Brewer, a leading researcher in behavioral and addiction science, describes urge endurance as the most direct route to undermining the power of cravings, compulsions, and runaway emotional spirals. His clinical studies document that participants who practiced mindful awareness, observing urges without acting, reported significant reductions in compulsive behaviors, whether the urge was to overeat, check social media, or lash out during conflict. More powerfully, this method provided benefits that endured long past the initial discomfort, reviving a sense of inner peace and agency over time. Brewer's findings are echoed throughout mindfulness-based relapse prevention programs. People who view discomfort as waves to crest rather than emergencies to fix develop a resiliency that not only blunts the present urge but also reverberates positively into all areas of their lives. Consider the story of Matteo, whose social anxiety often pushed him into isolation. At parties, the urge to flee as panic rose became almost ritualistic. Matteo tried masking his nerves or distracting himself with his phone, but these strategies only postponed the inevitable retreat, never shifting his inner calculus. With support, he committed to a new approach. Each time the urge to escape surfaced, he would close his eyes, drop his shoulders, and silently acknowledge the anxiety. He challenged himself to stay just 2 minutes longer, allowing his heart to race and hands to tremble without yielding to the urge to leave. The first few attempts were excruciating, but as the minutes passed and the world did not collapse, something fundamental began to shift. Each successful act of endurance pried loose the belief that distress was intolerable. Matteo soon found that social moments, instead of being battlegrounds, could become arenas for growth. Over months, his confidence bloomed, and his worlds, both internal and external, broadened in scope. The effectiveness of enduring urge storms goes beyond momentary triumph. It is transformational for the mind and character. Surviving an urge, even a single time, provides a kind of experiential evidence the inner critic cannot refute. Slowly, these moments compound, undermining the old belief that pain or desire must always win. Especially for those struggling with overwhelming impulses, learning to withstand them marks a turning point. The focus shifts from battling symptoms to building underlying strength and trust in one's capacity. The result is not just relief from one urge, but a deeper, authentic freedom that endures. Learning how to endure urge storms transforms vague ideas about self-control into practical steps that quickly build confidence and inner calm. Begin by preparing yourself for the waves. This starts not when the urge strikes, but by setting a clear intention ahead of time. Take just a minute each morning to reflect and tell yourself, today, if a powerful urge or emotion flares, I will stay with it rather than flee or escape. Planting this intention in your mind readies you for the moment when discomfort arises, reminding you that what matters is not the urge itself, but your response. When you sense the beginning of an urge, a racing heartbeat, an itch to act, a flood of demanding thoughts, the first step is to hit pause. Instead of trying to suppress or argue with your feelings, acknowledge them openly. A strong feeling is here. I can observe it without reacting. Gently shift your attention to the physical sensations in your body, such as tension in your jaw, jittery hands, or a churning stomach. Breathe deeply and evenly for 5 slow breaths, focusing your mind fully on each inhalation and exhalation. This anchors you in the present and buys precious seconds for your thinking brain to catch up with your more reactive mind. Give the urge a name if you can. This is anxiety, or this is craving, or this is frustration. Research shows that simply labeling urges weakens their grip and activates parts of your brain associated with self-regulation. The next step is to surf the urge as if you are riding a wave. Visualize the feeling rising, peaking, and eventually subsiding. Remind yourself that no wave, no matter how fierce, lasts forever. Commit to staying where you are, not as a form of punishment, but as an act of courage and self-kindness, promising only to wait it out for 1 or 2 minutes before reconsidering action. Set a timer if this feels helpful, or simply count slow breaths. After a short period, rate your urge on a scale from 1 to 10. Celebrate if it's become less intense. If the feeling persists, repeat the cycle. Name it again, breathe, and ride the next small crest. Every successful act of observation and endurance is a real, measurable small win. Record these moments in a journal or mental log, marking the times you waited out the urge and what happened next. Notice the pride or relief that arises, a quiet victory over the accusations of powerlessness or inevitability. Over days and weeks, you may even discover your urges diminishing in intensity and frequency. With each storm weathered, the mind remembers that you can hold steady and wait for clarity without caving to impulse. Give yourself permission to practice this gradually. Start with urges that feel manageable, and with patience, tackle more challenging waves as confidence grows. Each effort is meaningful progress, and setbacks are simply part of learning, not failures, but steps toward resilience. As you grow adept at enduring urges, you build a new story about yourself, one in which discomfort is noticed, experienced, and survived without disaster. You become someone capable of standing strong in the storm. Next, prepare to move beyond managing urges to a more expansive way of being. Living each day with clear intention, aligning your everyday actions with what matters most. If these exercises make a difference in your world or spark new insights, share your journey with Mindset Liberation. Contribute your thoughts and strategies, encourage fellow readers, and help create an inspiring space for growth and true liberation as you carry your hard-won momentum forward. Chapter 7. Live with clear intention. When you realize that every moment offers a chance to express who you truly are, life shifts from mere survival to purposeful living. Living with clear intention is more than keeping busy or managing symptoms. It is about aligning your choices, actions, and responses with the vision and values you have carefully cultivated on this journey. Unlike the fleeting relief of impulse or the unconscious repetition of habits, intention infuses even the smallest acts with meaning, allowing your energy to be directed toward growth instead of scattered by worry or distraction. Embracing intention is nothing less than reclaiming authorship over your own story, day by day, choice by choice. This shift toward intentionality is not reserved for the few. It is a powerful mental shift available to everyone, and its impact is well documented. Researchers at Harvard found that individuals who regularly set and reflect on daily intentions report higher levels of well-being, improved concentration, and a greater sense of control over their lives. In fact, studies in positive psychology have shown that intention setting can reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression by as much as 40%, simply because it enables people to act rather than react when faced with stress or uncertainty. The clarity gained from living with purpose increases resilience, providing you with an inner compass to guide you through both challenge and opportunity. Living with clear intention often begins as a quiet commitment, a decision to act not just out of habit, but from your highest vision of yourself. Take, for example, Leo, who spent years bouncing between jobs, relationships, and goals without feeling grounded. He described his life as being pulled in every direction, but truly belonging nowhere, swept by external demands or the shifting winds of mood. It wasn't until Leo started each day by asking, "What quality do I most want to bring into this day?" that his reality began to transform. Some mornings he chose focus, other days compassion or bravery. By consciously holding this intention, Leo was able to shape his responses no matter what surprises came. Steadily weaving his values into the fabric of everyday experience, the difference was profound. Over time, disappointments lost their power to derail him, while victories grew sweeter because they reflected his true priorities. Expert insights echo Leo's journey. Dr. Tara Swart, a neuroscientist and leadership coach, emphasizes that clear intention is one of the most reliable levers for creating measurable change in both mental health and long-term success. She explains that directing your attention through planning, visualization, or a single guiding question literally rewires neural pathways, making it easier to choose in line with your aspirations, even when automations and impulsiveness try to take over. This reveals a hopeful promise. Brain and life come to reflect what you practice focusing on with purpose. Anchored in your intentions, you possess a steadying force greater than any storm of circumstance or emotion. This is the truest power there is, one that transforms setbacks into lessons, routine into ritual, and mere survival into deep fulfillment. In every deliberate breath, word, and deed, you reclaim a sense of possibility and control over your story. Living with clear intention is incredibly powerful because it transforms life from something that happens to you into something you actively create, even during moments of emotional turbulence or overwhelming uncertainty. The effectiveness of this method is rooted in both neuroscience and the way the human mind processes meaning. When you act with intention, you are no longer reacting blindly to the swirl of triggers, thoughts, and external demands that bombard you throughout the day. Instead, your brain is given a precise focus, a direction that orients your decisions, words, and behaviors in alignment with your chosen values. This fundamentally changes your experience of stress and difficulty because your actions become vehicles for expressing purpose instead of unconscious patterned responses. Numerous scientific studies emphasize just how life-altering intentional living can be. Research published in the journal Emotion found that individuals who consistently set intentions and mindfully monitor their daily actions reported not only reduced symptoms of anxiety and depression, but also increased psychological flexibility and overall well-being. Further, MRI imaging in intention-setting experiments shows that when people prepare in advance to behave calmly, compassionately, or confidently, the neural pathways involved in emotion regulation and executive function become measurably more active. The mere act of declaring one's intention before a stressful event has been shown to decrease the reactivity of the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, thus making it easier for people to maintain control, even in the heat of the moment. Intentionality equips you with the cognitive tools to weather conflict or emotional pain, shifting your focus from what is uncontrollable to what is most meaningful to you. This was precisely the resolution that changed Marisol's life. After years of falling into old habits during times of stress, she faced each setback with frustration, a sense that progress was constantly slipping through her fingers. No amount of to-do lists or motivational quotes helped her reclaim a sense of agency. Finally, prompted by her therapist, Marisol began a simple practice each morning. Before her day began, she selected a single guiding intention, usually a value she wished to develop more deeply. Some days, patience shaped her interactions with her children. Other days, courage guided her at work. Whenever she felt reactive or overwhelmed, she paused, recalled her chosen intention, and asked herself how her actions could reflect it, even if imperfectly. The shift was gradual but profound. Rather than feeling derailed by frustration or automatic behavior, Marisol experienced a growing sense of steadiness and self-respect. Mistakes and setbacks did not vanish, but they no longer defined her. Each intentional choice, however small, cemented her belief in her ability to author her responses and direction. In her words, "It was as if I learned to steer the boat, not because the seas calmed, but because I understood how to aim." Her emotional resilience deepened, and her anxiety lessened as a result of feeling empowered by her intentions instead of adrift in uncertainty. Living with clear intention works because it draws out your inner resources, focus, agency, meaning, and places you at the helm of your life. It breaks cycles of mere reaction and replaces them with mindful, directed living. In practice, this shift is both urgent and life-changing for anyone seeking lasting mental health and fulfillment. Bringing clear intention into your everyday life starts with a simple but powerful shift, deciding, before your day begins, what values or qualities you want to embody. Begin by taking 5 calm, conscious breaths the moment you wake, and then ask yourself, what do I want this day to mean for me? Think of a specific value, like patience, determination, honesty, or joy, and state it aloud or write it down somewhere visible. This single act plants your intention in your awareness. If mornings are overwhelming, pause for a minute before entering a new situation or conversation and silently name your guiding value for that moment. Your day will gradually begin to reflect this practice as your attention gravitates toward living out this intention. As you move through your day, turn intention setting into a habit by linking it to daily transitions, before checking your phone, stepping into a meeting, or even beginning lunch. Take a deep breath, recall your chosen value, and hold it as your anchor. When emotions surge or impulses threaten to derail you, pause and gently ask, what would someone embodying my chosen value do right now? This mindful question transforms frazzled reactivity into thoughtful response, making each interaction or struggle an opportunity for practice instead of a setback. If you notice your mind drifting or getting hijacked by old habits, use physical reminders, a bracelet, a note, a background on your phone, to refocus your attention on your daily intention. Start small to gain early victories. For example, if your intention is kindness, act out a genuine compliment or helpful gesture. If it's focus, close distracting tabs for 10 minutes during a task. Celebrate each intentional act, no matter how tiny, as proof that purpose really does guide your living. Over time, your brain builds a deeper association, making it more natural to choose thoughtful action rather than automatic reaction. Capture these small wins by jotting down a quick note at the day's end, just a sentence summarizing how you honored your intention, or even a challenge where you gently recommitted instead of giving up. Looking back after a few days or weeks, you'll find yourself accumulating evidence of authentic growth. When difficulties, stress, or old triggers appear, see if you can pause, even if just for a few breaths, and remember that intention is not about never faltering, but about guiding yourself back, again and again. Mistakes and messiness are inevitable. The victory is in noticing and returning, gently but persistently, to your values. Even one mindful recovery is a step forward, building hope and self-trust over time. As this becomes second nature, you'll discover that living with clear intention doesn't require perfection, but steady practice. Your life will gradually shift from feeling scattered and compelled by outside forces to being shaped from the inside out, each moment a new chance to choose meaning. Let every deliberate breath, word, and deed be a silent act of creation, like your story unfolding in real time, one intention, one action at a time. As you reach the end of this journey from impulse to intention, take a moment to honor the progress you've made. Throughout this book, we have uncovered the hidden power of the trigger cycle, discovered how to disrupt automatic reactions, clarified personal long-term desires, strengthened inner decision power, and established purposeful daily habits. You have learned to endure urge storms with new resilience and, ultimately, to live each day with sincere, conscious intention. Every lesson was built on the belief that meaningful transformation is not reserved for a select few. It is possible for anyone willing to bring awareness, courage, and deliberate practice to their daily life. True change emerges not through grand gestures or fleeting motivation, but in small, steady steps repeated with care. Thank you for investing your time, energy, and trust in this process. Your commitment lights the way for your continued growth and inspires others who are seeking their own path forward. If this book has moved you or offered insights, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to the Mindset Liberation channel. Your engagement helps us build a supportive community where we all rise, step by intentional step, toward a life of greater meaning and fulfillment.